My name is Teddy Fikre, and I'm running for Congress to represent Virginia's 8th Congressional District. So I'm actually taking a different approach today. Over the past week, I've been, contemplating a lot about the path forward in terms of how to more effectively reach constituents and voters. And initially I thought about recording a daily video to communicate this message. But the more I thought about it, that's kind of the playbook of politics as we know it. What I really wanted to do today is just kind of open up and tell you about why I felt compelled to run, and the underlying message of my campaign, which in a lot of ways transcends politics. I come at this from a different angle of sorts. I really have no appetite to be a political insider. In a lot of ways, I view politics as, in fact, everything that's kind of wrong with this world. It's divisive, it pits people against each other, and it makes us forget about our common humanity. And if you actually pay attention to the message of this campaign and what I've been writing about, speaking about for the past, ever since I declared about 7 months ago, it's to get beyond our differences and focus on the things that we have in common. And it's been a long journey for me to get to this point. I wasn't always like this. About 14 years ago, actually, was the first time I really got really involved in politics. I kind of fell, head first into the Obama campaign. Went to 16 states, and dove in and thought that change would come. Without going into all the details, I end up being disappointed, let down, like it happens all the time. Politician comes around and promises various things, and then ultimately there's change doesn't come. And I don't say this necessarily to critique. Actually, there's an underlying message of this message for today. It's the fact that there is no us versus them. There is only we, the collective humanity. And that if we have any shot of advancing justice, of doing better going forward, it's if we get over all divides. There was a time where, after I got disappointed in politics, I found myself to be anti-establishment of sorts, and kind of pointing out all the ills of the world. It was around 7 years ago that a lesson learned the hardest way taught me, this lesson has been continues to this day, in terms of valuing our common humanity above and beyond all the political and social divides. Up until 2014, I was a defense contractor. I used to work at the Pentagon. Used to work at this company called Booz Allen Hamilton, making a lot of money. But yet, within that, I've always cared about justice and kind of bending the arc of history towards justice, as Martin Luther King said. But I did so unwittingly through the lens of politics. And like I said, politics divides us. And so it took, shortly after 2014, my job at Booz Allen Hamilton came to an end. And within short order, after making some bad business decisions and, quite frankly, some bad life decisions as well. One thing about me is I'm not going to present myself to be some type of, someone who has it all figured out. I make my mistakes. I learn from them. I'm an everyday man, if you call it that. So you're not gonna hear this speaking from the mountaintop and preaching to you as if though I have everything figured out. I'm on the same journey that you're on and that everyone else is on. We try to do better every day. Sometimes we stumble backwards and we move on. But in 2015, I realized just how thin the line is between the things that we take for granted and the horrific consequences that comes when the the bills outpaces by far your expenses or your revenue, especially when the revenue ended, and shortly thereafter I became homeless for 2.5 years. That was an experience that was jarring at that time. But within every hardship, there's a blessing that comes along with it. I learned during the most difficult time of my life about our common humanity. And when it comes to suffering, when it comes to pains that people feel, there really is no us versus them. Up until I was homeless, I used to spend a lot of time bashing Republican voters and collectively blaming the ills of the world on white people. It took 2.5 years of homelessness. And one specific incident, I can never, it's seared in the back of my mind to this day. I remember waking up and, going to the cafeteria to eat breakfast at this place called Greenville Rescue Mission. It was a homeless shelter in Greenville, South Carolina. And when I sat down to eat, I looked up and there I saw a 7-year-old white girl. I found out later on that her name was Samantha or Sam. And watching this little girl in a homeless shelter broke my heart in ways I could never really explain it with words. I just remember instantly just crying for like 20 minutes. It's one thing to see homeless adults, but it's a whole other thing to see homeless children. And at that exact moment, it shifted this idea of what justice means. It shifted in my mind because I realized that we can't look at these things through the lens of our differences. Like I said, when it comes to human suffering, it transcends all the divisions, all the differences that we have. And this is not to say that there have not been egregious injustices committed against certain people based on either their color or their gender or their ethnicity. These things are true. But what I learned is that you can't take those injustices and then collectively blame the rest. Because there's people on the quote-unquote other side who are also going through a lot of struggles and a lot of hardship. At almost every homeless shelter I visited or stayed at over those 2.5 years, a lot of, I would say majority, if not in some cases, the vast majority of people that were living there were white people. And so it just taught me that, it's the lesson that Fred Hampton realized and Malcolm X realized, Martin Luther King realized, Bobby Kennedy realized. They all realized that the only way that we could actually advance justice and ameliorate human suffering is if we get beyond these social divides. And so that's why I kind of, I pivoted towards that. Malcolm X had his awakening in Mecca. I had mine in a homeless shelter. And it took an encounter with a 7-year-old white girl to make me realize that. And once my eyes opened up to that, I realized that, it's in this world, unfortunately, the system is set up to where the vast majority of us are being squeezed in order to enrich a very few. And like I said from the very outset, there is no us versus them. I'm not saying this to berate and bash. Even on this front, I'm kind of pivoting or kind of shifting my mind on this. Because the truth of it is, everyone has, if we're going to actually make a U-turn away from what seems to be an implosion of humanity in terms of whether it's climate change, the economy that's going sideways, potentially, there's open talk about a nuclear war with Russia. These things, it's like we're kind of whistling past our own collective graves. We've gotten so, used to self-medicating on outrage and sensationalism that there's these huge crises coming at the forefront. But the politics of our differences, the politics of division, and really what I see for what it is now, the politics of soft apartheid, where we're convinced and conditioned to see human suffering and seek justice through the lens of tribalism. I'm originally from Ethiopia. For almost 3,000 years, of course, Ethiopia has had a lot of moments of tribulation, hardship, injustices amongst various communities. But for the most part, we saw each other as Ethiopians. And it was that level of unity that was enabled us to remain free of colonization for such a long time. Over the past 27 years and ongoing to this day, we pivoted away from our commonality and focused on our differences, and to the detriment of wider society, where injustices that were visited upon certain, I don't even like to say ethnicities, communities, because I mean, I don't like to say the word tribe. I like community better. But injustices that were visited upon certain communities were then weaponized and leveraged in order to pit people against each other. And here's what happens at all times. And there's a reason why I bring this up. What happened in my birthland of Ethiopia, and because it's germane to what's going on right now. When people feel hopeless, when there's disparity between the haves and the have-nots in ways that are mind-boggling, when there's massive despair, and when people, when even the basics of life, when Maslow, the first hierarchy, within the hierarchy of Maslow, he's talking about the need to have shelter and food. When those two things are not available, people become susceptible to demagogues that come around and incite their emotions, and peddle grievances in order to pit people against each other. It might seem as if though these people are doing us a favor, but they're not. What they're doing is paving the pathway to horrific outcomes, and that's exactly what happened in Ethiopia. 2 years after I was born, 500,000 Ethiopians lost their lives, and to this day, there's no within Ethiopia. Everyone has, most Ethiopians have, a lot of, I guess, intermarriages. So there's not really one pure this ethnicity or that ethnicity. But yet people are now being forced to pick one or the other, and in the process, and fighting within families, let alone neighbors and countrymen. And there's a bloodbath taking place. The whole of the country is being torn apart. It benefits a very few, and the rest is suffering. And that is exactly what's taking place in America too. Maybe not to the extent that's taking place in Ethiopia in terms of the bloodbath, but that too might be coming for us here in America. Again, when people feel despair, when there's a disparity between the haves and the have-nots, when more and more people are unable to fulfill their potential, have nothing but hopelessness going into the future, when inflation is kicking people's butts. One of the things that I learned in 2015, for the 2.5 years I was homeless, is just how many homeless people became homeless after 2008. For the past 14 years, this economy has been gimmicks and tricks to keep this economy afloat, born on the backs of the middle class, working class, and of course more and more people are falling into the depravity of homelessness. It's shocking, to be honest with you. When I'm driving through DC, just to let you know a little bit about myself, obviously I'm not homeless anymore. By the grace of God, I was able to get find gainful employment. I'm actually in a better position now than I was when I was working at Booz Allen. But yet, given that, I find myself driving. Even though I have a full-time IT project management position, I find myself driving Uber part-time to make ends meet and make sure that I have enough to save for my for my son's future, and of course I learned a valuable lesson about the uncertainties of life. So just make sure that I have enough money saved aside for a rainy day. This is the new normal, for most Americans, where people are compelled to drive, work 1, 2, 3 jobs, multiple jobs to make ends meet. And that's if you're lucky. Here's the things that that almost always have in common. 70% of Americans, I just found out today, it's actually, that figure is up to 70. I thought it was 60%. 70% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck. 70% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck. The net savings of Americans, it's zero. Almost all of us are, and again, this is not a theory. What I'm speaking about, this was my reality in 2015. Almost all of us are 1 or 2 missed paychecks away from utter disaster, meaning homelessness. In the land of vast riches, untold resources, and the richest country in the world, for this level of disparity between the few who have everything and the rest of us who have crumbs, and then being conditioned daily to fight over crumbs, that is what compels me to run. Because there's 2 things that are undeniable. You can't have social justice without economic justice. But you can't have economic justice unless we get over the social divides. And again, I don't see this to play into the us versus them divides, but the truth of it is, the status quo, where the politics of division, the politics of tribalism, it's not by accident. It benefits those who are doing very well under the current paradigm. Where some are able to buy islands, buy chicken wings with gold flakes on them. I saw an article the other day where there's a restaurant for dogs, and they have food tasting for dogs, and it's for $75. Think about that. There's people that are homeless throughout San Francisco, D.C., New York, and beyond, and yet here we are feeding dogs $75 for a buffet. But this is where we're at, where most of us, the vast majority of us, are seeing a sticker shock every day. We're going shopping and for groceries, and yet there are very few, a fraction of society, that are able to feed their dogs $75 at a restaurant. This is what happens when some are living in a bubble and the rest of us are dodging trouble day to day. And but yet, ultimately, if we are gonna make a course correction towards true sustainability means that we have a viable working class, a thriving middle class, and where we're able to actually dedicate resources to the poor instead of dedicating endless fortunes to perpetuating the military-industrial complex. If we're going to be able to do this, almost everyone has to have our hand in this, and taking the steering wheel away from this the economic edge or the social economic ledge that we're careening towards. Because the truth of it is, we also have our hand in, almost all of us have our hands in this. As much as we rage against the system, as much as we want demand change, our actions are actually perpetuating what the very same things that we're fighting against. Our actions when it comes to bashing each other based on our differences, devaluing our common humanity, consuming to no ends, and not focusing on a sense of shared identity as human beings, and also a sense of shared prosperity. I'm not here to espouse any type of ideology. I'm not really a fan of ideologies altogether. What I'm a fan of is ideas, and this idea should be sacrosanct. That as it happens to the least, it happens to the rest. And society is not made better by enriching a few and hoping that it trickles down to the rest of us. We are all made better as we lift those at the bottom. We should judge society based on the livelihood of the least amongst us, if we call it that. We should not be paying attention to how many riches a few accumulate. It's how much we are able to alleviate poverty, because and how much we're able to ensure that people are actually able to have homes and are able to fulfill their potential in life, are able to go to college without being laden with six figures of debt. Because when you ensure that those at the quote unquote bottom of society do well, that's how you truly raise all boats. When you confer riches to the very few, that ends up being hoarded, and then that's what creates the disparity and the wealth gap that rivals the French Revolution. So ultimately, that's what compels me to run. I got tired of focusing on the ills of the world. I wanted to be a part of a solution, and there is no solution that could come unless we first and foremost value our common humanity. We have to get beyond this us versus them, and realize that there's only we, the collective humanity. And when we do that, then we could actually create a coalition that is unstoppable. Because as long as we play into the divides, as long as we continue to bash each other, we will end up essentially defeating ourselves. And that's the deception of politics. And that's truly the deception of the political parties. Because when you see yourself as red or blue first, then you forget that your neighbor, your brothers or sisters, someone who doesn't happen to live in the same state or even in the same country, is in the same struggle for the most part as you. Because again, when the vast majority of us are leading lives of either economic uncertainty, or for too many these days, economic insolvency. Again, you don't have to go that far down the road anywhere that you live to see homelessness. Before I became homeless myself, homelessness was something that you kind of only saw in cities. I come back to this Alexandria area in Alexandria, Virginia, in 2016, 17, actually 2017. And this homelessness and homeless people in Tyson's Corner, and in Alexandria, Arlington, right on the streets, like right on major intersections. These Tyson's Corner is part of the richest county, one of the richest counties in America, and yet they're right there in the heart of it are panhandlers. And I don't say this to in any way disparage people that are driven to panhandle. I saw it firsthand. What could happen in terms of when you go down to the whole of homelessness. The odds get stacked against you. People say get a job, as if it's that it could be done in the snap of a finger. When somebody has a hard time, finding a place to sleep at night, and to shower the next day in order to go to a job interview, and the stigma that comes along with it, and this the feeling of self despair and the bitterness that comes along with it. These things become almost like a wall that become insurmountable. So, to that end, if we have a chance to actually course correct, it's by we need to understand we can only do so by valuing what we have in common, and getting beyond the political and social divides. And so that's why I'm running for Congress. Again, the message that I'm kind of conveying to you, it's not the common political talking point. I have no interest in doing that. I'm running as an independent. I refuse to take a penny from corporate interest. You're not going to see slick advertisements on TV or radio commercials. I have an MBA from Johns Hopkins, and for a long time, I was enthralled with marketing. The message of this campaign, what I'm trying to get across as part of my candidacy, it's not one to be marketed. It's something that either its time has arrived or it hasn't. For me as a person of faith, I look at it this way. I will do my part and leave to God the rest. And part of that is just having faith that if this message is fitting for this time, it will grow organically. People will just there's that movie where they said build it, they will come. So in that way, I'm conveying the message, and if the voters come and something comes of this campaign, it does. And if it doesn't, my dad used to tell me a long time ago, in life, the bigger part of victory is trying, not just winning. So that's ultimately what compelled me to run too. We could spend all hours and all day, all parts of our days complaining about the ills of the world, and being angry and bitter. But all these things are forms of disempowerment. Ultimately, if we're going to make an impact in this world and affect change, we have to turn disillusionment and grievances into action, an action that is inclusive. Not inclusive in terms of the corporate talk, where you see a few diverse faces at the very top while everyone else is struggling at the bottom, but inclusion where the benefits of this country are being there's equity for all, true equity. The various ideas that I've spelled out, you can actually go to the campaign website. There's some policy proposals that I've put forth. You can go to www.fikre, F as in Frank, IKRE, 4VA.com. You actually see the website on the top right corner, I guess. So you could get a lot more information at that website. But beyond that, ultimately, the message I really want to convey again is for us, because I'm not here to make it seem like I have everything figured out. What people want is not just more talking points. It's to feel heard, and to tamp down the temperature, the vitriol, and give people a sense that their needs and their interests are being met. So that's me running for office. It's not to be a politician. It's to truly be a public servant. And part of the ways I'm going to do that is because I know exactly, a politician once said, I feel your pain. I don't have to feel your pain. I live your realities. When the founder of this country envisioned Congress, it was supposed to be everyday people representing everyday people. What we have now is anything but. Our government has become utterly disconnected from we the people, where Congress has become less the people's house and more of a country club, where it's populated by millionaires who are working for billionaires, and the rest of us are being left out in the cold. And what all we get is lip service and gaslighting. So, instead of voting for the same two political parties, which are part of the status quo, no matter what people say, I'm offering a difference, which is someone who is not part of the political status the political establishment altogether. But ultimately, come whatever comes of this campaign, I want to close this with this one thought, that there is only one way for us to redeem our country and really save the collective humanity from the fire that we're kind of that's enveloping us on a daily basis on many different fronts. And that's if we again forget it, not necessarily forget, but if we value our common humanity above our differences, while we should most absolutely honor our differences and honor what makes us unique, we should never forget about our common humanity. And in this, everyone, from Bezos to the homeless person and everyone in between, we have a stake in doing better and turning away from rank greed, pervasive selfishness, and think of the collective whole. Together, we will heal, or apart, we will continue to suffer. So again, my name is Teddy Fikre. I'm running for Congress to represent Virginia's 8th Congressional District. And you can find out more by going to the website by going to www.fikre, Fikre, 4, va.com. Thank you and have a blessed day.